Booting Linux off USB pendrives. Booting a Linux system off USB pendrives is one of my favorite things. On a laptop we have the following advantages. The hard disk drive can be shut down and that reduces power consumption at home. The system heats less and the fans are triggered less frequently. The system can take more shocks, a bumpy backseat taxi ride. With old workstation hardware, can be used for quick testing of the hardware platforms. Linux, Ubuntu these days, works quite well with most hardware. One downside, many old motherboard BIOSes do not support a USB boot. I have preferred a USB boot stick to a live CD in most cases. Questions. What other advantages and problems have you seen or anticipate with a USB booted Linux system? What is your choice of Linux for this purpose? Would you suggest X4 or something more proven/stable for a Linux USB boot? Do you often find USB drives getting corrupted? Do you partition your USB drives? Recent install guide reference, Ubuntu Karmic Koala encrypted flash memory installation, edited the 22nd of July 2009. This install guide is for installing Ubuntu Karmic Koala and a USB flash memory stick with the Lux encrypted X4 file system by running the Ubuntu Karmic Koala alternate CD.
When booting off USB media, I would be careful of the following. Swap, unless you need it. Save the rights of the flash. Keep the file system slim, and turn off Linux/Apama unless you need it. Tune the journaling and cache settings to get better performance. I have a USB key that I use to boot all my systems. It contains the kernel and bootloader with configurations for the machine. I also keep the encryption keys for my hard disk drives on it.
I've heard some people have concerns about write cycles with USB pen drives in most of the Linux file systems, like X3, which is set up to update the disk whenever a file is accessed. This can cause a lot of writing, specifically in the same area of the drive. Usually it is recommended to use the no time option in order to fix this. I created a USB drive Linux system for a team of robots. I used Debian, which was selected because it was very easy to put it in a small space and I am familiar with it already. We've been running them for a while now and there has been no corruption so far. Even if there is corruption, as long as you have backups, we mirror to another drive of the same size periodically, you should be okay and it's not exactly expensive to replace. I generally don't partition my USB drives, because I find it creates hassles. If I want a reasonable file system, with permissions, capped sensitivity, etc., on a Windows accessible drive I create a loop file to use.
I only have answers for the last 3 questions. I don't have professional experience with booting from flash drives. Someone else mentioned that there are concerns about write cycles on flash drives. I've heard it be somewhere in the area of 100,000 writes and 500,000 writes. It's probably the latter. The problem with using X4 or X3 is that they're journaling file systems. This means that the data is transferred to the storage device, stored there and then written to the proper place on the storage device. This way, if the full write is incomplete and the computer crashes, the storage device has a copy and can continue writing. This will reduce the lifespan of your flash drive, specifically, whatever part is being used as the journal. I would recommend using a non-journaling file system for this purpose, such as X2. I haven't had a USB drive get corrupted. The write limit I mentioned above was per memory unit. With that being said, They build and back up memory units to be used when one dies. On top of that, even the low-end estimate I heard, 100,000 writes, will take a while to reach. If you wrote to one memory unit 8 times per day every day, it would take over 30 years to kill a memory unit. With that being said, sometimes live USB installs will use a portion of the USB stick as memory if the system doesn't have enough RAM or if it is unsure of how much RAM it will have access to later, although this is almost always just done with live CDs to simulate saving data such as web browser history. Since this is a live USB, it can just save that data permanently. With all that being said, keep in mind that a memory unit isn't a single byte, but some number of bytes which is determined when the flash drive was designed. I myself have had problems partitioning a USB drive, but it is possible. Correction: in the second portion I refer to a process by which a flash drive uses itself for RAM and then refer to something similar for live CDs. For live CDs, they use what's called a RAM drive where they use the system's RAM as a virtual hard disk to save files such as browser history. What I described for flash drives may not actually exist. It may have been a small bit of confusion on my part where I was thinking of Windows and NBSP, Vista's Ready Boost.
I like Puppy Linux, though I haven't played around with it for a while. It's fast, even on underpowered machines. It also has, or had, built-in easy network wizards, etc. to get online fast. I am not sure how easy it is to hack if you run into difficulties. I never delved that deeply into it.
If you want to support the chain, please consider subscribing.